Here's a segment from a recent Gun Talk radio episode. You can listen to all the Gun Talk radio podcasts however you tune in, or check out guntalk.com for more. Joining me right now is Brad Gilpin from Blue Force Gear. Brad, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You bet. Well, let's start off. Tell people what Blue Force Gear is and where did it come from?
So, Blue Force Gear is a soft goods company, primarily working with military, law enforcement, and smart, prepared citizen shooters everywhere. We started in Savannah, Georgia, in the bonus room of our owner and one sewing machine, and we've grown to a 75-person company located outside Savannah and Pooler, Georgia. We're all U.S.-made and produced items, do all our sewing right here in Georgia. And good group of people, family-owned, privately held business, and serving the shooting community.
You know, it's interesting because it is difficult and unusual to be able to find soft goods that are made in the U.S. these days. It seems like everything you get, I flip the label over and it's all made in China. And here you are making soft goods, making slings, making vests, making trauma kits, all the rest of this, and doing it right there in the U.S.
That's correct. And we feel very strongly on that subject. Our owner will not purchase or use anything in our production that's made out of the country. You know, we're patriots through and through, and we really are proud of that. It does cost a bit more, but we back that up with a lifetime guarantee. We've been around since almost coming up on 20 years, and we'll be here to honor that guarantee. And I'm glad that we're giving jobs to people right here in Georgia.
All right, you might give folks just a quick little briefing on your background.
Okay, well, I'm originally from South Louisiana and grew up and went to school, got out. I was as I say, I was a police officer for about 5 minutes and got an opportunity to join the U.S. Border Patrol and did so, and went to the southern border and was there for a while. And I was a founding member of a unit called Boar Star. It's part of the Special Operations Group. And we were a non-permissive environment search, trauma, and rescue unit is the way it's the technical.
What does that mean?
Aspect. We're if you're familiar with the Air Force PJs,
yes,
we kind of modeled ourselves after that, you know, and that in the military, it's combat search and rescue. And when we say non-permissive environment, it's a little bit different than, say, a urban environment where you're not worried about necessarily a cartel member coming up behind you. So and they're still out there today. That unit's grown a whole bunch since I was there helping start it. And they're all over the southern border and the northern border, out saving lives every day. I'm very proud of having been a member of that unit. And good group of guys.
You're kind of a combination of Super SWAT and EMS and rescue guys all together.
That I like the way you put that. Yeah.
Okay, well, toward that end, and I've got my, I never got away from my Boy Scout genes of being prepared, and made a big impression on me. I mean, as I'm talking to you right now, there's one of your tourniquets in my pocket. When I get up in the morning, that is in my pocket every day. But I feel there's probably more I should be doing. If you would talk about your trauma kits, and because with your background, you know all about this, is, you know, who needs a trauma kit, what should be in it, and what should go along with it, i.e. the knowledge?
Okay. Well, you're right. Trauma, being aware of, trained for being able to give initial care in a trauma situation is of utmost importance. And frankly, the chance that you're going to provide life-saving care to someone as opposed to shooting someone is much greater. Because it's not just a self-defense situation or defense of another. This could be a car wreck, an industrial accident, an accident at home. You know, I've provided life-saving care in many, many more instances off duty than I ever did on duty. And I think it's something that people should really be aware of. Our mandate at our company, my division, the medical programs division, is that we build individual medical kits. We don't build medic kits for helicopters or tanks or buses or hospitals. We stick just to the stuff that you carry on your person individually to provide, what I like to call from bang to the arrival of EMS. That's
So
the time frame.
It's kind of like your carry gun. I'm trying to take care of the situation until the reinforcements arrive.
Correct. That's exactly it. And what I like to tell people to dispel the myth. Some people want to build it up. You don't need to be an EMT or a paramedic or a doctor to provide that initial life-saving care. If you can bridge that 5, 10, 15-minute gap and keep the patient, what we call in the medical world, viable, keep them alive until the arrival of those advanced care providers, you can make all the difference in the world. And in fact, a lot of times that care may be nothing more than getting them to the next echelon of care. And we talk about that in the courses I teach and the courses other people teach. We talk about the incredible importance of rapid transport and that initial life-saving care. And that initial life-saving care, you mentioned you carry a tourniquet. That if I had to have one piece of medical gear, that's the one I would have. The ability to stop bleeding from an extremity, an arm or a leg, is so important because you can die from that in just a matter of minutes if the true arterial bleed. And the application, the tourniquet's cheap. It's easy to carry. It can be put on. We teach people at the end of an 8-hour course, they can grab from the time they touch their tourniquet until it's on the patient and totally applied, tightened down, is 15 seconds. Very simple procedure.
And a belt is not good enough.
So, and
well, I was going to ask you, because a lot of people say, well, I've got a belt. I can just use a belt for a tourniquet.
And you mentioned the Boy Scouts. I was a Boy Scout as well. Not as many people these days. I always ask that at the beginning of my classes. Who here was in the Scouts? And I don't get a lot of raised hands these days. But, they taught what are called improvised tourniquets, and realistic scientific studies performed by the military over the last 20 years have shown that, the vast majority of improvised tourniquets just don't work. And now that commercial tourniquets are so available, so compact, so inexpensive, and so efficient, there's really no reason not to have several. And I don't say one, I say several. I keep one in my car. I keep one in my kitchen. I keep one here at my office. I keep one on my personal IFAC kit. And you should have several and know how to use them. Very, very important.
Let's do this. I'll take a quick break here, Brad, and I want to come back.
Yep.
I want to talk a little bit about some of the slings you guys have, because you guys are like the gurus of rifle slings and weapon slings. We're talking with Brad Gilpin from Blue Force Gear. Check it out, blueforcegear.com. Our number here is 866-TALK-GUN. Do you carry a tourniquet? Do you carry a med kit? Not like, a little bitty first aid kit, Red Cross first aid kit. Do you really carry stuff? And what do you carry? 866-TALK-GUN. All right, here's the reality of it. A long gun without a sling is like a handgun without a holster. What are you going to do with it? Where are you going to put it? You got to carry it around. You got to use your hands in emergency. You got to be able to sling that. There's a lot of different sling possibilities out there, from simple straps to very involved things. The Blue Force Gear folks have what a lot of people think are maybe the very best slings, particularly tactical slings out there. We're talking with Brad Gilpin from Blue Force Gear. How'd you guys get into the whole sling business?
It's a good story. The owner of the company was a very avid shooter and firearms enthusiast, and he wasn't happy with what was available commercially in the early 2000s. Most of them were just straps to carry a rifle and didn't really provide a lot of other capability. And he was in industrial construction at the time, and he reached out to a couple of people to try and get some help, and they laughed him off. So he went out and bought a sewing machine and left his job and started making slings. And people said,
"Really?
You're insane," and here we are today. The official issued sling of the U.S. Marine Corps, the U.S. Air Force Security Forces uses, a lot of units in SOCOM, foreign militaries, shooters all over the world, and pretty interesting story. Just a guy that wanted a sling for his own rifle.
You got the whole line of Vickers slings. A lot of people know. You might just explain who the heck is Larry Vickers.
So early on, Ashley, the owner of the company, met a guy named Larry Vickers, who was the weapons guru at Delta Force, and they hit it off as buddies and started working on the design and came up with what is now known as the VCAS, or Vickers Combat Application Sling, and it's a what's known as a closed loop sling system. So it's adjustable, but nothing hangs off of it. There was a competitive product at the time that is what's called a tail sling, and it had a piece that hung loose that you pulled on to adjust it, but it flopped around and would sometimes get caught in things, and a lot of people didn't like that, and they figured out a way to do away with that tail, and the rest is history, as they say.
Well, and just to explain, people are trying to figure out what are we talking about. Basically, this sling is adjustable. You can have it loose so you can actually shoot and still have the sling on, whether it's shotgun, rifle, subgun, whatever it is. And then you can just grab it and tighten it up, and you can basically suck that firearm right up against your chest. So now it's not flopping around when you're moving, and it gives you hands free if you got to go help somebody or fight somebody or pick up something or do something. Otherwise, if you don't have a sling, you got to put the gun down, or you got to try to hold on to it with one hand, and that's just unacceptable. And the Vickers sling really has become the standard when it comes to tactical slings.
Yeah, and that's an incredibly important point that a lot of people, until you get off the range and perform daily activities while carrying that long gun, you kind of don't grasp the importance of what you just said. But in my old life, we were getting in and out of helicopters and vehicles and walking around and picking stuff up and moving things and all this while carrying a long gun, and the importance of being able to have it securely slung and out of the way and not flopping around and pointing at people was very important.
Oh, absolutely. And all this is available at blueforcegear.com. Brad, I want to spiral back to the idea of med kits, and we talk about, do they still teach? Is it basically we're talking about bleeding and breathing? Is that the main things?
Well, I'll tell you, what I tell people is if you have a limited amount of, you talked about training earlier, and training is absolutely critical. And if you have a limited amount of time and bandwidth, as we say, to train, the one thing I tell people is more important than anything else is bleeding control, because the patient will bleed to death before the oxygen or anything else becomes important. You can bleed to death, as I said earlier, in a matter of minutes, and you can go, a fair amount of time without oxygen flow, utilizing what's already in your lungs to keep the body alive. But that blood, once it's out, you can't replace it.
Right, and there are a lot of places you can take one of these stop the bleed classes.
Yep. So that's you're exactly correct, and I want to give them an unsolicited plug. The Stop the Bleed program is something I'm not associated with it. A good friend of mine's on the board over there, but I don't work for him or get paid for him. But it is a great program for your non-medical provider to take in a short amount of time, a day. It's a one-day class, and you get skills that you can keep the rest of your life and save a life with. And great program, great bunch of people.
One last thing I want to touch on, and you mentioned it briefly before, and it reminded me of several tactical shooting schools I've been to, and they do a little brief, here's the med kit, here's the deal, and here we're going to call. But they also talk about that truck over there has the keys in it, and they basically talk about, I don't know what you call it, like a swoop and go. We're going to throw a tourniquet on, and then we're going to throw them in the back of the truck, and we're not waiting for the ambulance to get here. We're taking them as fast as we can to help.
Right. Rapid transport. In the EMS world, that's known as grab and go. And,
grab and go.
And it is, especially, I know you mentioned you're out there in the Midwest, and I've been to shooting ranges all over the world, and they're inevitably someplace distant from the nearest care. And, if you stop the initial bleeding and that guy's laying there on the ground, he's not getting better. And there's no point in letting him sit there because they're not going to do anything once the ambulance does get there other than pick him up and take him. And if you can cut that time down, that's critical.
You know, and it's for the people who say, well, what about the professionals? You know what? You can also do a combo deal. You can just grab and go and start moving, and then it could actually be sending an ambulance, and you can meet somewhere in the middle if you have to, because you're in communication. You know,
exactly right. The range that we use for a lot of our training classes is back off of like I've been to ranges all over the U.S. and there'll be a tiny sign or no sign at all and just a dirt road. And by the time EMS tries to find it and get to you, if nothing else, drive out to the highway with the patient and put your flashers on and light a flare and stand out there in the middle of the road. That's critically important and doesn't take a lot of training to understand that concept and grasp it.
And none of this is hard. None of this is really difficult. What it really requires is a change in mindset of, I am going to take care of myself and my family. Because here's the reality. Brad, people may not be willing to do this and say, I'll take care of myself. But if you said, yeah, but your 10-year-old is out there doing active sports stuff, or maybe walk through a plate glass window or a door, and who is going to take care of that kid? Because the ambulance is going to be here in 10 minutes, and he's going to be dead for 5 minutes when they get here.
That's right. So, incredibly. And actually, it's funny you mentioned that with pediatrics, children. In the medical world, we say they're not just small humans. They actually function differently, and blood loss for them is much more of a critical situation. So it is even becomes more important with children that you control the bleed and rapidly transport them.
You know, I mean, the people I know who've really been at this a while, they carry a lot of these tourniquets. Thank you so much. It's blueforcegear.com. Brad, I really appreciate your time and look forward to getting together with you when we get down to Louisiana again.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. We'll do some medical training.
Well, I'm all in on that one. We'll make that one happen.